guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over an article titled, Universities Come Under Fire for Canceling Classes, Providing Safe Spaces for Students Upset by Trump's Victory. And guys, this article is all about how these various universities and colleges around the country, who have been known for years for being not necessarily places to prepare the youth for the real world, give them skills, but more like indoctrination centers or places to rip people off, now they become glorified, overpriced daycares. Because, as the title says, and many you've heard, a great deal of the youth have not taken too well to the results of the 2024 election. And instead of them having to go about business, going to school, because let's be honest, going to school is their job, well, no, classes are being canceled. There have been safe spaces set up for crying rooms, places for kids to color, play with Legos, hold stuffed animals, pets. It's ridiculous. And these are our future parents out there and leaders and teachers like this. And the worst part is, it isn't just the students that, not all, but these students losing their minds. It's the professors. It is ridiculous. As I said in the video I covered earlier about how a lot of gals are going on an SCX strike because of the results of the election, I'm going to say it again because I'm doing this all today. People are allowed to be disappointed or be upset when things don't go the way they want. In politics, people are allowed to have their views. I strongly believe that, and I mean it with every fiber of my being. And they're allowed to choose whatever party they want, vote who they want, have their leaders who they want. That's fine. That's their business. I may not agree with it, but that's their right. But here's the thing. You're not always going to get your way. Things aren't going to go the way you want. And it doesn't give you the right to act like big babies about it and become unhinged and throw tantrums on social media and all that and go on an SCX strike against your boyfriends and husbands who have been great to you. You get the point. But here's the problem. These institutions are coddling these kids. These places are meant to help prepare youth for the real world, at least in terms of skills. Not this. How does this crying rooms and rooms that kids can play with the stuffed animals and do puzzles and color and Play-Doh prepare them for a tough world? It's insane, but that's what's going on here. You know, the greatest generation that are these children's great-grandparents and all are probably rolling in their grave of what's going on right now. That was the generation that survived the Great Depression and World War II and volunteered for World War II. And if they weren't fighting, they were in the factories. You get the point. Doing their part. They dealt with a lot. You think they were going to the crying room or playing with Play-Doh or puzzles? But anyhow, I said enough. You know my feeling here. So I'm going to go through this article here to show you what's going on here. And let me tell you guys, if you know anybody that's behaving this way, well, you know how SSM would handle it. It says here, and by the way, this article, there's a lot of articles like this, but I chose this one because it's more detailed. It comes from Fox News, so either you guys are going to laugh or barf at that. It says here, reports that several universities across the nation canceled classes and provide safe spaces for students to recover from the presidential election prompted a wave of criticism that these schools aren't preparing students for the real world. Well, they're not. Georgetown University in D.C. drew mockery on social media after news broke that the college invited students to a self-care suite on Wednesday to recover from the stress of the 2024 presidential election. Students at Georgetown's McCourt School of Public Policy were reportedly offered treats like milk and cookies and hot cocoa, as well as Lego toys and coloring and mindful exercises to get their minds off the election results. What is this, preschool? I haven't colored since I was probably like, I don't know, maybe 8 years old. Like, you know, back in the day when you go to restaurants and when the kids are waiting, they have like a worksheet with like mazes and things you can color while your parents can like actually talk to each other. Long before social media, that was the last time I colored. I've had disappointment in my life, guys, just like you, but I didn't have to stop and color or play with some Lego. Although Legos are cool, but do play with Legos because they're badass, not because you're sad. But you get my point. Someone on social media says, seriously, Georgetown? We all know that it's not conservative students who want the daycare experience. Stop calling leftists who can't handle reality. Defense of Freedom Institute spokesperson Angela Morabito wrote on X. I agree with Angela. Another elite school, elite, really, reportedly canceled classes and lessened course requirements on Wednesday in response to the President-elect Trump's victory. The Harvard Crimson reported that several courses in the sociology, math, and general education departments at Harvard canceled classes that day, made attendance optional, or extended assignment deadlines. That is ridiculous. The kids' parents are paying for them to go to these schools. They shouldn't be canceling school or canceling classes. I think some of the cancellation was from the crybaby professors that were becoming unhinged. But come on here. Students, going to school at that time is their job. If you are going through a tough time or something happens that you're not happy about, can you just not show up at work or quit your job because you're feeling blue, you're disappointed about how something happened? No, because you're going to get fired. And you have people that rely on you. Well, these kids being coddled are going to think that's just how it is. Well, I can't go to work today because I'm sad about how I didn't get my way in terms of how I voted. Again, they're allowed to be disappointed. But you see the bad path this is putting them on? This is absurd. Okay? It says here, economics lecturer Maximum I can't pronounce this dude's name, reportedly told students during his intermediate microeconomics course that in-class quizzes would be optional Wednesday and that students could take off if they needed to process the election results. For God's sakes. Really? I would get this from like the fucking gender studies teachers or the sociology or whatever, but from economics? Really? That was always my favorite subject. You fucking kidding me? It says here, as we recover from the eventful election night and process the implications of Trump's victory, please know that class will proceed as usual today, except the classroom quizzes will not be for credit. He wrote in an email obtained by the Crimson, feel free to take off if needed. No, it doesn't work that way. You can't just take off your job if you're not happy. You're going to get fired. The student newspaper noted that several professors postponed exams or lightened students' assignments after his win in 2016 as well. See? And now those students from 2016 are now in the workforce, and they probably didn't show up to work that day. The school's reaction prompted fierce criticism from academics and Harvard graduates on social media. Good, it should. One of them said, fellow academics, this is nuts. Stop doing this. It makes you look like an out-of-touch crazy person. It further erodes respect for higher education and trust in academic research. And it's not good for your students. William J. Luther, Associate Professor of Economics at Florida Atlantic University, wrote on X, do you know how many classes Harvard canceled after October 7th? 0. I like this as a professor of economics at Florida Atlantic University. Florida. Yeah, South Florida. Not far from me. He's right. This is ridiculous. Harvard graduate Shabos Kesterbaum wrote on X, Ivy League universities are incubators of well, now he's getting into some hot issues here. I'm going to skip that part what he said here, but he says, tax the endowments, end the federal funding, abolish DEI. One of the other sides of the country, in Tacoma, Washington, the University of Puget Sound announced a full week of self-care election activities to stress students. In Tacoma, the University of Puget Sound, a full week of self-care. My God. Okay, are you going to reimburse the parents or the students for that time taken off? Students were invited to stroll in a walkable labyrinth with calming lighting and music, recharge their mental health in an arts and crafts corner, or make a collage in a supportive space for election processing. Other events on the week's schedule included support spaces exclusive for LGB students and students of color to talk about their election anxiety. Again, this isn't for 5-year-olds. This is for adult 5-year-olds. This is crazy. Again, they're allowed to be disappointed, but it doesn't mean that you don't go to school, you don't go to work. I want to point something out here. This needs to be said. There have been many tragedies in American history, and people push through. That in my 9/11, horrible. We all remember, well, most of us remember what we were doing that day when that happened. And, okay, I can see how some classes were canceled. I can see how, okay, we're going to take a break from the quizzes and tests today and grieving. Understandable. And then guess what? How people handled things. A lot of people signed up for the military knowing what was going to happen. Or let's go back decades earlier when President Kennedy was shot and assassinated. Even people didn't like him or agree with his politics or party, still they were understandably upset. They still, obviously, I'm sure there was grieving, and people were shaken, but still, they had to go to their jobs, people went to school. Or let's talk about Pearl Harbor, that Sunday. We're attacked, obviously we're getting in the war, all that. Good reason to be upset, and people were, but still. And what happened that Monday? All over the nation, guys were lining up at the door of the recruiting stations to enlist. My dad was one of them. I told you guys I'm from a second family. My dad was born in 1922. My dad was one of them, 19 years old, at the Marine Corps recruiter station with his buddies to sign up. And then he was disappointed because they said, you're in college, this is going to go on for years, we're going to need officers. Finish the 2 years you got left and come back. Dad wasn't happy about that, but he understood the point. Finished the 2 years, enlisted, became an officer in the Marines and a pilot in the Pacific. That's how they handled shit back in the day. There weren't none of these situations where people, adults, coloring and doing puzzles and playing with Play-Doh and doing, you get the point. For God's sakes, our enemies laugh at us. We need strong people out there, leaders. You can be disappointed, you can be upset, but these universities that have been sucking away money and ripping people off for years, not to mention our indoctrination centers, are now again glorified high-priced daycares. It's absurd. At the University of Oregon, Quacktavius, the therapy duck, baby therapy goats, and therapy dogs were brought to campus to promote well-being and lessen anxiety for students, according to the school's event calendar, and first supported by Campus Reform. Students at Virginia Tech can play with therapy dogs, do arts and crafts, or join a guided stretching class as part of the school's Election Day activities organized by the Counseling Center. So, here's a question. Let's just say that things went the opposite way on Election Day. Let's parallel universe things that went different. Do you think they'd be having a petting zoo and Play-Doh and Legos and puzzles for the conservative students that were not happy things went? I don't think so. It goes on, unfortunately. The University of Michigan School of Social Work invited students to attend various post-election events, including an empowering art therapy workshop to process the emotions stirred by the election season. At Michigan State University, an MSU professor went viral after canceling her classes to grieve about the election. No, professor, the students are paying to be in school, and they need, well, maybe they don't need you there, but the point is, no. I told you about the professors. She said, I'm canceling class today to grieve the presidential election results. She wrote in a notice later, shared on social media. As a queer immigrant woman of color, I cannot in good conscience go on about my day like everything is all right. Well, guess what? People have to go to their jobs, so that's not an excuse. Period. You're allowed to be upset. And by the way, guys, a lot of people could say, and there's a fair point here, that isn't just disappointment, upset, it's also fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of, what can happen, that type of thing. Well, here's a big question, and this is important here, and I said, I can't stress this enough. Who fanned the flames of the fear? Who put the fear in a lot of these young people's minds? They got them all worked up. We all know. The media. Because they profit from that. And also who fanned the flames of fear? The same party and candidates and celebrities backing that party, they also put the fear. And it's extremely likely those fears aren't going to come to reality. But they've done the damage, and they're like, too bad. Let everybody else deal with them. I'm right, and you know I'm right. Even if you disagree with me. Another one says here, I don't think of it as coddling. I think of it as paying attention to the environment around us, she added. Well, of course she's not going to say it's coddling, but it is coddling. It's not just colleges who have come under fire for their post-election practices. Students at the pre-K through 12th grade private school, the Ethical Culture Fieldson School in New York, who felt too emotionally distressed the day after the election, were excused from classes, the New York Times reported. Excused absences were permitted on Wednesday for students who felt unable to fully engage in classes. Well, it's one thing if it's pre-K through, little kids, but then again, why do you think the little kids are getting so worked up? Probably because their parents got them worked up. Think about that. The parents are supposed to be level-headed and cool and set a good example for their kids, not crying and having meltdowns and tantrums. You see what I'm talking about here? In addition, no homework will be assigned on Election Day, no student assessments will be given on Wednesday, and a psychologist will be available to provide counseling. The New York Times reported headed on Election Day. It says your comedian Jerry Seinfeld, whose 2 sons once attended the elite school, accused the institution of coddling students. He's right. He says, this is why the kids hated the school, he wrote to the New York Times. What kind of lies have these people led that make them think that this is the right way to handle young people? To encourage them to buckle. This is the lesson they are providing for ungodly sums of money. Thank you, Jerry Seinfeld. Exactly. They're spending all this money. The parents are paying for it. The students are racking up debt. And this is how, we need good leadership. Okay? Strong, sensible, level-headed leadership. Not just from men, but also women. Because you let these people go as they are, how's that going to help us as a nation? How's that going to help us as a society? This is absurd. But gentlemen, as I said, the other video I filmed earlier, which you guys will probably catch, sadly, this is just the beginning. So this is why I'm covering it. And for those that might be worried or upset that SSM, I like coming to you for things other than politics. I understand that. And this is going to be not a politics channel. But I'm going to cover subjects that relate to all us guys, the subjects that unite us, that are going to be a byproduct of the politics. And I'm going to, and you're going to hear things like various parties' names or Trump on occasion in the things I read, but they're not going to be the subject matter of that. So just so you're aware, because I know a lot of guys that don't want to hear it, and believe me, I want to keep it separate too. But given the directions going and the unhinged mania that's going on, I'm going to report on that and comment and roast. So you're going to hear certain words you're not going to like, but remember, this channel is sticking to what unites us all, okay? And I know you want to break from politics. Believe me, I get it, and I want it too. But these are going to pop up from time to time. I'm just telling you now. But primarily, this is going to be the crazy stories that you hear, the subscribers submitted stories and all that you enjoy, so don't worry about that. I got to point that out because I know a lot of people may overreact or may think something's changed. I assure you guys. But you are going to see more articles popping up. But again, I'm going to comment on them. But it's not going to be a politics channel. I can't make that more clear. All right, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me think about this. Let me know, guys. For you young guys out there, you guys that are in school, are you seeing any of this crap going on? What is the word on the street about that amongst your fellow students and all that? Guys that are out there that are parents, do you have any kids in school that are dealing with it, that any of these schools or any schools in that matter are handling this? I'd like to hear about in the comment section. Let's share away, and remember, guys, gotta stay level-headed and cool. And also to my 4% of women out there, you gotta stay level-headed and cool, because we don't want these wackos leading, modeling, molding our kids, the students, all that, and our society. It's time we gotta stand up and show how adults handle things. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.